doggies, won't you walk with me? I'm the puppet dog. Usually, when we discuss the human-animal bond, we celebrate the joy, companionship, and unconditional love that pets bring into our lives. However, tonight's conversation takes a bit of a turn as we delve into the tragic intersection of violence against both humans and animals. We'll be examining the case of Katie Janness and her beloved dog Bowie, who were brutally unalived in Atlanta's Piedmont Park nearly 3 years ago this coming July. Our guest, renowned forensic expert Sheryl McCollum, will illuminate the investigative challenges surrounding this unsolved case. We're going to pack it in tonight because we're also going to explore the potential links between animal trafficking and human trafficking networks. And this discussion is crucial in raising awareness and seeking justice for all victims, whether they walk on 2 legs or 4. Our guest, Sheryl McCollum, is not only a seasoned crime scene investigator and founder of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute, but also the esteemed host of the highly acclaimed podcast Zone 7, writer for Crime Online, forensic and crime scene expert for Crime Stories with Nancy Grace, and Sheryl holds a master's degree in criminal justice with an emphasis on policing, and she is also the co-author of the textbook Cold Case Pathways to Justice. Welcome, Sheryl.
Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this, honey.
Oh, believe me, I've been looking forward to it. So, and I'm sure our audience is too. We have some people coming into the chat. So if you're new here, though, just to let you know, I'm Ann Angela Webb, owner of Animal Intuitive Academy and Intuitive Touch Animal Care. For over 20 years, I've worn 2 hats: passionate animal communicator, massage and acupressure practitioner, and licensed clinical social worker. And here we learn how to connect with animals on a deeper level, explore holistic care options, support pet parents through their journey, and interview experts in animal care and advocacy. And I just want to mention that this quick disclaimer, please be advised that this episode does involve discussion of human and animal mistreatment. So just take that into account if you're going to continue watching and if you have any little ones around. And I just want to say hello, Mel Mack. Thank you so much. She's our wonderful mod in the chat. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. And if you have questions or comments later, we love to see your comments. I answer all comments, and we appreciate you just being here. So for the topics this evening, we're going to get to those, but Sheryl, please just share with us, what is the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute?
It's a nonprofit that we started to take on unsolved homicide, missing persons, and kidnapping cases where law enforcement just needed some help. There's departments all across the country that don't have a cold case squad. They don't have specialized units. And we have over 600 experts in every discipline you can imagine, as well as college students that assist on these cases for free.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. And I think you're also part of the Cold Case Foundation, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, honored to be a part of that group. You're talking about people from, John Douglas to, just everybody you've ever heard of is a part of it. And when you put that type of just brain power on a case, you can really make some moves, no doubt about it.
Incredible. And we actually had some of your colleagues on earlier this year. Gary Bricado, Ann Burgess, and Catherine Ramsland were here. So it's so nice to have you come on as well. I'm so excited. So I did talk about this case a while back, and it's been a long time, though. So I'm very excited to have you here as a forensic expert. So I figured let's start there. And, you've shared your thoughts with media sources, including that Crime Online we mentioned. But for people who aren't familiar with this case, I'm just going to give you a quick overview. Just to tell you a little bit, Katie Janness was an avid reader who collected books. She had taught herself to play the guitar and had recently, before all this happened, ventured into writing songs. By the way, if you can hear any noise outside, our next door neighbor, who also has a German Shepherd, has a trainer over. So if you hear that, they're doing some exposure training, I think it sounds like. It's like a party out there. So Catherine Janness, Katie, as she was also known, was planning for a future with the love of her life, Emma Clark. They had been together for 7 years and considered themselves married. Katie left with her dog Bowie for a walk shortly after 10 p.m. on the night of July 28th, 2021. And Katie's partner Emma said she had come by sometime after that to the restaurant where Emma worked, Henry's Midtown Tavern on 10th Street, to say hi as she was going along on this walk with Bowie. So when Katie didn't return home after the walk, Emma went looking for them using the Find My Phone app to help her and discovered their bodies near the park entrance. The officers went to the entrance of Piedmont Park at 10th Street and Charles Allen Drive around 1 a.m. and on July 28th after getting that call from Emma. So that's kind of where we leave off. And this is a case that's familiar with you because it's kind of in your territory, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I've walked the crime scene. I've had the chance to speak with Emma on more than one occasion.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, I'm as familiar as I can be without being actually on the case for some reason.
Okay. That's amazing. So I mean, there's a lot here, and it's so awful because of what happened. I mean, I don't want to talk too much. I've already said so much, but,
Mhm.
they were unalived with a knife,
Yes.
over 50 stab wounds, and on Katie's body, and then
Hmm.
also Bowie. So there's a little bit of information that's been released, although it kind of seems like not a ton. It seems like they're keeping a lot of this to themselves.
Hmm.
But
Which
there
I think
was
is the right call. We'll get into that, but I think that's the right call.
okay. She did have defensive wounds on her hands, and the
Mhm.
letters F, A, and T were carved into her torso. So so let's just go from there. What do you think? Do you feel like this was a random attack? Was it targeted?
Hmm. I think you have to start with the actual park. So if I could just kind of paint a picture for everybody. So this is basically our Central Park in Atlanta. It's beautiful. It's got lots of green space. Everybody goes there.
Okay.
Picnics, they show movies, people exercise, people get engaged there. Like Piedmont Park is central and it's used in a multiple, type of ways for different things, not just, people that are from Atlanta and live near there, but people visit there because this is a somewhat famous park.
Okay.
When you drive up to Charles Drive and the park is there and there's some gates but the gates are open. I mean, it's accessible to people. And there's Katie at the crosswalk away from the park. So that's when she's leaving the restaurant after she visited with Emma for a little while. And that's her and Bowie walking toward Piedmont Park. So once they get out of that crosswalk, that's the last camera that picks her up. So we have real time of when she was in that crosswalk. So we can say when Emma said yes, she dropped by, we talked for a little while, and she and Bowie were going to go for a walk. Once I got off work, we were going to meet at the house. So real time, we know exactly where she was. And then you can walk it yourself. She should have been in the park in less than 7 minutes. I mean, it was not far at all, even if she stopped to talk to some other people. The thing
Okay.
about the park, even if it's technically closed, there are still people that utilize the park. It can be a cut through getting from restaurants to, apartments and homes. Again, people that exercise. It's a wide open paths. I mean, it's just a beautiful place to be. Even in the midnight hour, it is still illuminated enough you can see. You could read a newspaper. It's not like you couldn't see anything. Now, there are pockets where if somebody wanted to hide in tree lines or bushes, they could do that and be unseen. But again, this killer didn't do that. This killer came at her and Bowie as soon as she almost crossed that threshold to go into the park. He did not wait for her to get deep inside the park where nobody else was around. So again, right there on Charles Drive, you've got apartments and townhomes and freestanding, dwellings all around. So you're not alone at the intersection where she was at all. So as soon as she gets into the park, I believe, obviously, I think everybody would agree that Bowie was killed first because he's found first right there. I think when Bowie is killed and attacked, I think she ran, but he caught up to her fairly quickly. And where she was attacked, again, it's not like she was drug into this wooded area. Anybody that would have walked by could have easily seen what was occurring. It just so happens in that moment, there wasn't anybody.
It's incredible that they took that kind of a risk,
Hmm.
the attacker.
Right? So again, that tells you a lot about the attacker. And so I think that's why the FBI's BAU was brought in so quickly
Okay.
because they needed
Good
somebody to
question.
explain to us, is this a visionary killer? Is this a control freak? Is this somebody that's a sexual sadist? Like, who do we have on our hands? Is this a serial person or was this targeted? Did somebody target her?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to look at all those. So for the folks listening that may not be in law enforcement, sometimes we do what's called a parallel investigation. So at the same time, we are looking at Katie's life. Was this domestic? Where was Emma? Was this somebody that she dated a year ago that's been stalking her and she's told some close friends? Was this somebody because she was in the service industry that would show up at her restaurant that she didn't feel exactly safe around? So you have to look at that. What is her life? Does she owe somebody money? Is she a drug addict? Does she have a job that Emma didn't know anything about that put her at some type of risk or danger? At the same time, you're looking at an unknown, unknown to her, unknown to law enforcement. Was this a serial killer? Is this somebody that's a rapist and this is the first time he's ever killed? Doesn't look that way. But again, you have to ask yourself the domestic and the unknown. So that's what Atlanta was doing very quickly. And to their credit, they brought in experts almost immediately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
When I saw the FBI was at um, the autopsy actually, so
Hmm.
they brought him in right away. It sounds like
But it's important because
yeah.
what do those letters mean? I mean, she
Right.
clearly wasn't fat. So did it mean that? Is this person delusional? Does this person just hate women? So that was just a negative thing that almost any woman would be upset being called.
Right.
They took extra time, and that's always critical. So 50 stab wounds don't happen in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Carving those letters don't happen in 2 minutes. None of those things were necessary to kill her. You don't have to stab somebody 50 times. So why? Why that many times? Why those letters carved where they were in the order that they were? Do the letters stand for something? Is this something that the killer has in his head, like a BTK? Or is this something that it is fat and he was just calling her that, like calling her a whore, just saying something derogatory? Again, that's why you need the BAU. There was a lot here to unpack. It is rare that somebody would murder somebody and their dog. So that's going to get your
Right.
attention.
Yeah.
It's rare they're going to be stabbed 50 times. It's rare that they're going to have something carved in their body. So all of those, just those three things should get your attention. But then when you factor in this was quasi in the wide open. Her body was not hidden. She wasn't buried. She wasn't covered. He made no attempt to hide her at all. When Emma got there, Emma immediately saw Bowie, walked
Yeah.
a very short distance, and then there was Katie.
I can't even imagine. So a couple things. Unfortunately, people might be wondering, well, weren't there were no cameras? Well, there weren't. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
apparently a lot of the cameras were inactive.
Hmm.
They had cameras, but they were inactive due to outdated technology, um, which is really a shame. Apparently, they've since updated them, but a
Hmm.
little late. So I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, the fact I mean, it's just, does it tell you the person was potentially psychotic or on
Hmm.
drugs? Like they would take all these risks, the dog, public
Right.
place.
And again, I went there and I walked it at the exact same time of day because I wanted to see how many people are, out and about. What can I see? If I were to scream, could somebody hear me? The first thing that just kind of blew my mind is the amount of activity even after this homicide. It isn't like the park was vacant. It isn't like people were too scared. I'm telling you, that park is active all the time. People biking, walking, jogging, like I said, social activities, whether they're meeting friends there to have a picnic or they're getting engaged or they're just, having a bottle of wine with each other. Right across the street are private homes
Yeah.
on almost all sides. There are roadways that, again, stay pretty active. So if anybody were to fall off their bike and get hurt, there'd be quick help. I mean, there's somebody there. When Karen Greer and I were there the first time at 1:15 in the morning, we could hear people right down the street at a bar. It was open air, like they're on the patio, but we could hear them.
It's
So if we
incredible.
had started screaming, they would be able to hear us.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so he probably, I mean, I can imagine if you're running and you're just trying to get away, maybe you don't even scream because you're just shocked and running, and maybe
Right.
you don't even get that out. Um, so at this point, there really hasn't been an update. I mean, last summer, I think it was, there was it wasn't really an update. I mean, the Atlanta PD just said, we're still looking for. And by the way, if anyone's watching this listening to this on the podcast, there is a tip line. I have it up on the screen, but it's 404-577-TIPS. Or you can text CS as in Sam, A as in Apple, and the tip to crimes in numerically CRIMES, but the numerals on your phone. And they apparently give you a code or something like that, so you can do it anonymously. You can use these numbers or do this way. And or you can go to stopcrimeatl.org, and at the time I saw this, it still says there's a $2,000 reward. So yeah, so Melmac is asking, attacked, sorry, that comes up right at the wrong place. Attacked from behind, she's asking. And this is obviously Katie and Bowie we have up on the screen for those that are listening.
I mean, quite possibly. You're talking about when she first got into the park. I think there's probably a good chance because of the direction she ran in. I think if that person had approached her from the front and grabbed her dog, I think she would have ran back toward the restaurant. So I think the person was absolutely behind her.
Okay.
And I think they either grabbed the leash or grabbed Bowie by the collar, and did whatever they did to Bowie very quickly. And I think that probably freaked her out enough. She didn't know what to do maybe for a split second. And then
Yeah.
she ran. And she ran with probably no direction really in mind except away from him, which was behind her between the street and the gate.
And so speaking of Bowie, and I guess they're not going to, as you said, they're not going to give out too much information for good reason, but
Right.
his necropsy was not released, but potentially what could come from, for instance, from Bowie's
Hmm.
defensive bites or maybe scratches or,
Yeah.
the hand on the
If
leash.
he was able to bite the person, they could swab his mouth and get DNA for sure. If the person picked him up by the collar, they could possibly get touch DNA. On the leash, the exact same thing. So again, whatever they did to Bowie, and you're talking about a pretty, strong animal.
Yeah, Bowie's a pit bull, by the way, if you're listening.
Yeah.
If you're not.
And so I doubt that he was strangled because that would take longer and she would have been further from where Bowie was found, if that makes sense to y'all.
Yeah.
So I don't think this person took a lot of time with him. I think it was very quick. I think the decision was, I got to get this dog out of my way and I've got to do it fast. And again, I know you've got people that are listening, it's sensitive, but I'm just saying, for me, from a forensic standpoint, if I had to guess, he grabbed the dog and, cut his throat very quickly and she took off, and he caught her within, I mean, it was yards. It wasn't maybe 25, 30 yards.
Yeah. It's incredibly brazen to, I mean,
Hmm.
because he could have bit him. I mean, he could have done damage before he had a chance to,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's really,
And from what I learned from Emma, he was very protective. So even the first time he's grabbed and tried to get control, he might have reacted very quickly, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. I hope that they do have something. And so it is also kind of incredible. We haven't heard about anything like this since then,
Yes.
or before. I guess I don't know. Is that surprising that in these 3 years nothing similar
Well,
has?
I have a short answer and then I have another answer. The
Hmm.
short answer is yes, it is shocking because I think in the beginning, we all thought when Atlanta starts looking in every other state, there's going to be a similar transaction somewhere, right? That never transpired. So then we thought, well, there's no way with this level of violence, he's done. And there's no way this was his first time, is what you're thinking, right?
Yeah.
But then, you have to remind yourself of somebody like Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy strangled women with their own pantyhose. And then at the Chi Omega house, he picked up a log and bludgeoned them with a log that was outside, not even something he brought with him. Well, that doesn't look like the same person, but it's the same person.
Hmm.
So is he out there committing different crimes and we're missing it? Possibly.
Right. Okay.
Possibly. So
Okay.
again, I hate to give that answer because it's not a great answer, but it's the truth. And when all of us sit in a room, that's the kind of things that we toss around. Is this guy walking among us and he's dormant right now, which could also happen? There are people that have been dormant for 10 years. So is that what's happening? Is he in jail for something else because they found him with cocaine or something on him? So he's in jail for 3 years and we just hadn't heard from him? I don't know.
Okay.
But I will tell you this. I do know the Atlanta Police Department well. I know, a lot of their folks in homicide. This thing is not out of their mind. They are thinking about Katie and Bowie constantly. They are still walking the park. They'll still drive by there. If they get an alert from anywhere, they check it out. If they get a tip, they check it out. So I can tell you that. And that's with, I think, a lot of people in Fulton County. Like my police department is in Fulton County. But if we were to hear something or find a dog harmed in some way and something carved, we'd call them immediately.
Okay. So this wouldn't be considered a cold case at this point. It's still,
Well, it depends on your definition. So every department sometimes has a different definition. Ours is 3 years with no new leads or activity. So once you hit that 3-year mark and people aren't calling tips and you haven't found anything new and you haven't gotten any evidence back that points in one direction or another, or the BAU hasn't said, hey, I think we can connect this other case in Kansas. When that hasn't happened, you've got a cold case.
okay. Well, let's hope not. I hope, especially because it is the coming around to the same time, the July, maybe
Mhm.
with, I think another, I think I saw another podcast, not so much YouTubers, but podcasts did a two-parter on this. So I hope, some kind of new leads come in or anything to help them. There is
Mhm.
also this, let me bring it up on the screen. If people, ah, this is footage, if it's gonna let me share it. It's not gonna let me do it. I had a feeling I was having a problem with that. I had some footage to show of the park, of people leaving the park, and I don't know if
Mhm.
everybody. I know there was a jogger that for some
Mhm.
reason it's not letting me show, but a jogger they did speak to who they caught coming out of like that exit where there was that camera, leaving the
Mhm.
park. But there was a few other people, and hopefully it's such a big case. Hopefully all of them have come forward to if they had any information. But
Well, here's the reality, and anybody listening, you can go find this easily and watch it. There is no way that killer wasn't saturated with blood. So
right,
none of the people leaving the park would be the killer.
Yeah.
that we saw. So, you know, there's also a few ways you can get in and out of that park without going through the gate. So maybe he stayed in the park all night.
Wow.
Maybe he was living in the park. Again, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
That's a scary thought. Um, I'm assuming you, if you had the knowledge of this, because I know this information hasn't been released, that you probably
Hmm.
can't reveal it. if, but any DNA found, or can you elaborate? Um,
No.
yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying no to DNA. I'm saying I don't have the knowledge to elaborate.
Yeah.
And again, there's a reason they keep things close to the vest, y'all. And it, like, for example, what happened to Katie versus what happened to Bowie. We don't need to know what happened to Bowie because when they catch somebody, if that person blurts out the right answer, then, like, let's say they capture somebody and they're talking to them, and the guy goes, "Well, I didn't strangle that dog." They never said the dog was strangled.
Yeah.
Or, "Well, I didn't gut him." That was never said. So if you say that, then you have knowledge that you shouldn't have. So
Okay.
does that make sense?
I certainly think it does. Yes. Thanks.
Okay.
Melmac says. Um, so,
You're welcome.
um,
That's a cool little effect where it flies across the
oh, you can
screen.
see. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
nice. It's
Look,
going in the right place now. I don't know why
yeah.
before it was
I've
a
been
little
on
weird.
other things where they're like, "Oh, people are in the chat room, but I can't ever see anything." So I don't
Oh,
know if they're
okay.
going, "She's an idiot. I can't see it." So I just keep talking.
Right. Yeah, no, nobody's saying that for sure.
Okay. That's good. Good to know.
Yeah, and if people do have questions, again, feel free to post those and
Sure. I mean, if I know it, I'll answer it if I know it.
yeah, and also please do like, share, subscribe if you find any of this information helpful, and we do
But I
appreciate
want to
that
be
here.
clear again. This was not my case. I worked it only for the sake of TV, and to
Commentary.
help if we could. But it was just, especially at the time, because everybody was real upset. Like, is this guy living among us? Is he in the park? Is he going to strike again?
Sure.
So, and you're talking about a community. It is really rare that you have a murder in this type of situation where,
Yeah.
again, people are out and about. I mean, she just left a restaurant that was full of people. So I'm telling y'all again, it's not like she was cutting down some alley in,
Right.
the dark of night all alone. I mean, she did something she'd done 1,000 times. And, she's in a community that, for the most part, is extremely safe.
And
So
not to mention, she had her dog, who's not just a little floof.
that's right. That's right.
So I now, because of this case, I walk. I have a German Shepherd and I have a medium-sized dog, but now I just think, well, he's a good protector, but for people maybe coming in, I don't know. I don't take risks with him because I don't want something to
Yeah.
happen to him. Not
But,
that that was her fault. Not that she could have known that, but
oh, not at all.
um,
Not at all. And
yeah,
again, you don't know what his mind was. If he
right,
was seeing visions, he might not even have known that was a dog. Who knows?
yeah,
So,
right.
you know,
Poor Bowie, poor Katie. And I
yeah.
just feel my heart goes out to Emma and her family, and but to find that scenario. And I mean, also I'm sure there's people. This kind of on the last one. I think I felt kind of bad because I think I blocked someone who kept mentioning this, but I just, of course, not that I know anything, but my assumption, partly because of what happened to Bowie, is that people who might be trying to say that Emma had something to do with this. To me, that seems pretty out there, but I don't know.
Well, Bowie was her dog.
Yeah, that's
So, first of all,
why would
she would have
she?
killed the other dog
why,
because
why
they
would
had
she?
two dogs. One was Katie's and one was Emma's. Well, Katie was walking Emma's dog.
Emma's dog. Okay. Yeah, I know there's two pictures of dogs, and I
Yeah.
when I first did this, I think a few years ago, someone contacted me. They're like, "You've got the wrong dog. That's not Bowie." And I was like, "Oh, I think I got it right this time."
And listen, we don't have an arrest, so nobody's necessarily off the table. But again, logically, you're at work, everybody sees Katie come there.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to know there's a short window between you seeing her. Did they have an argument? Did she storm off? Did she slap her? Nobody has said that. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
said no, she stopped by all the time. It was her routine. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And then if you watch her activity, calling the phone, calling the phone, calling the phone, and then noticing, okay, the phone's not moving. So she either lost it and she's out there looking for it. Well, that's logical to think. If she dropped her phone somewhere in Piedmont Park, she's going to backtrack looking for it, and she can't get in touch with Emma, but she doesn't want to leave the phone out there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what Emma was thinking in the beginning. And then obviously what happened. And then there's a 911 call. You can hear it and you can make your own decision whether that sounds authentic to you.
Yeah. It
But,
would have been
you
a
know,
lot, and she would have had blood and had to go home and
you,
change and call the. Yeah. It's a
exactly.
lot. Yeah.
Exactly. It would have been a lot.
Yeah. And number one, the dog. That's.
And number one, pretty confident saying he.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that Emma wouldn't be able to do that. She wouldn't have
Yeah.
been able to
Yeah.
successfully complete that type of attack. So
Right. Yeah.
wasn't her.
Yeah. She's just got to live with this now. So I
Yeah.
hope they do catch this person soon. So thank you so much for your insight on that. Also, I just one more thing about that. I did want to mention that there is a
Mhm.
bench now in the park for Katie and Bowie. I think there's like a dog park area maybe there, and they have the bench
Right.
there if you ever want, if
Mhm.
anyone ever wants to go and pay their respects. And then also Katie had music that she was working on. She's got a beautiful voice, and she has it on SoundCloud.com/Katie dash Janness, Janness. I'll also link that in the description. So, and also the Crime Stopper or the crime reporting information. So, okay, so let's go now to wanted to talk about this really interesting thing you did. You went to either animal poaching or animal trafficking school in Africa.
Mhm.
Let's talk about that. That sounds
Yeah,
fascinating.
anti-poaching in South
Anti-poaching.
Africa. Yeah, it was fantastic. I will tell you, hands down, I think it's the best training I've ever had in 44 years in this business. Hands down.
Wow. And what brought you to that? How did you end up there?
Well, I have been interested in animal cruelty and specifically trafficking of exotic animals for years. And there just is not the training on the level that I wanted. And I'm in a position now where I'm kind of thinking of what I'm going to do in retirement.
Mhm.
And so I wanted it to be something I was still excited about and I could use my crime scene knowledge. I don't want to just put that on a shelf.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'll combine the two and see if I can't work animal crime scenes and help people understand what has occurred here and try to help solve some of these cases. So I started looking for, um, those types of classes, and I just could not find anything. And then I stumbled on the Wildlife Forensic Academy in South Africa, and I contacted them, and honey, it was game on. I couldn't get there quick enough.
Wow. That's so cool. What was it like? Like what do they do there?
Well, I'm assuming everybody on here is an animal lover, right?
More than
So,
likely.
okay, so let me just tell you what happened. So we have this little like a cottage almost, and all these cottages are kind of connected, and they're kind of like that where you have one. So your porch, it's almost like you're by yourself, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So they're kind of lined up, kind of cool. And the very first night we're there, I hear something, but I have no idea what it is. I mean, I'm from Georgia. I know certain animals, but I don't know what I'm hearing. And it's loud and it sounds like it's fast. And the next thing I know, this herd just comes flying by, and it's
Oh my
dark. I
gosh.
can't tell what it is, but they look dangerous. That's all I can tell you.
Wow.
And I was like, this is awesome. So the next morning, there's all this, evidence that a whole bunch of, animals have come by there. And then we go up toward the academy, because the academy is on, one whole, you know, you know, I guess you would call it like campus. And there's just a herd of zebra, and they're standing kind of off. It's the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen in my life. And then there's rhino, and then we have giraffe. And then I'm just like,
Wow.
who would ever leave here? You know? And so I'm thinking, how do I lose my passport? So then um, some of the training, like we had special forces from South Africa train us on how to, reverse track and find where the poachers are coming from, not just where they located the animals. And that was interesting and fascinating. And then we had people from Two Oceans Aquarium that are telling us, how do you get to the number of 350 million animals a year? The ocean, because they are, snagging some of these tiny little, you know, sea creatures, and they're doing it by the millions. I mean, it's
Gosh.
just crazy. Like,
Wow.
you know, 500,000 sharks are killed just for their fin.
Wow.
And, then you've got what they're doing to the rhino and their horn, and you've got what they're doing to elephants for the ivory, and then the tiger, it just keeps going on. Well, then, you're standing there talking to, one of the wildlife vets, and he says, well, by 2035, there won't be an African penguin. And I'm like, 30, 35? I
Yeah.
mean, you're talking about 11 years? And so I'm thinking, I don't have grandchildren yet. So you're telling me my grandchildren won't be able to see an African penguin? Like, that is not okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you start to say, okay, what can we do to help these animals? Well, here's the really cool part. This is an organized crime. And they do things like they barter. So sometimes they will go into the poorest communities and say, hey, y'all have no money. You got nothing going on. We're going to pay you in cash or in cocaine. Because again, they're organized criminals. So then you've got these folks that have nothing, and all you want me to do is go down there and get a bunch of turtles, or okay, I'll be right back. So now they've got money where they would never have that. So they barter some, they launder money, and then they actually take the animals. And there's one or two things you can do. You're either selling the animal live because this person wants it because it's so rare.
Mm-hmm.
So if you live wherever and you want a panther or you want, a tiger, they'll go get it. And the other thing they do is kill the animal for the parts. If somebody wants a paw or teeth or claws or the fur, and that's what they're doing. And, we're not talking about the hunting that is legal. If you have done something and you've put together a trip and it's completely legal, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you sneak onto an animal preserve and it's like fish in a barrel, and these tigers are there, and these zebras are there, and you go in there on private land and kill them.
Mm.
That's the deal.
So
So
specific.
you just think of the mob.
Yeah.
So, people think, oh, a pimp. You think a pimp runs women, and you think that's all they do. That's not all they do.
Mm-hmm.
They got drugs, they got guns, they're going to, launder money as well. They're going to be about whatever makes them money.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to say, hey, I'm only going to.
Bigger and bigger. This trade.
Mhm.
This going on. Okay.
The black market's not going anywhere. But here's the other good thing, because I like to tell the positive too.
Mm-hmm.
The routes that these folks take for animal trafficking are the same routes that human traffickers take. So if we can bust up some of these routes, not only are we saving animals, we're saving a lot of women and children and men.
So, in other words, do they traffic them in the same, like, vehicle, vessel, whatever, however they get in? They're
Yes,
all crowded in, they're all together, and then,
correct.
okay.
So
Yeah.
you can have an animal that you capture in South Africa, and it can be in Malaysia within 24 hours.
Wow.
Well, human beings are the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, like when you see a woman that's missing and you say, oh, well, she went missing from Orlando, Florida, she could also be in Malaysia just that quick.
That's, oh
So,
my
you want to
gosh.
bust these things up.
Yeah.
So, anywhere you have a port for ships, railroad, a busy airport. Those are the things you've got to make sure people understand. So you've got airports, they don't even have dogs that can locate these animals. They've got dogs that do drugs and bombs, but there are animals that can go in there and say, that suitcase, they've got turtles. That suitcase has got, whatever they're looking for. And it's pretty remarkable to watch those animals work, honey.
Yeah, yeah. And I actually saw a little thing when I was doing a little bit of research on this on YouTube. There was a small little thing about some technology they have that can, as things are coming through,
Hmm.
they're beginning to be able to like very quickly identify what those animals are. And unfortunately, a lot they're seeing like deceased animals in these
Yeah.
cases that are coming through, but they're taking those images and immediate, like within seconds, they can replicate it so that
Hmm.
if the same one comes through a few seconds later, now the computer system, the technology immediately picks up that's
Sure.
this crazy name,
And here's
turtle
one
or
thing I
whatever.
learned that blew my mind. And again, some of your folks probably know this, but I didn't know it. You know how you have ever been to like a garden? Sometimes they will have those butterflies in the cases
Hmm.
where you can see, oh, this is the, monarch, this is the purple African, butterfly. People collect all kinds of insects and bugs to the point there was a person that was going to Africa and collecting this beetle. And this beetle was so rare, this guy would find, their habitat and he would scoop up like 100, 200, and he was putting them in literally just a Tupperware case and sealing it. He didn't care that they died
Yeah.
because he was selling them to people for their collection because you could not, it's not legal to take this beetle out of Africa, but he was doing it.
Hmm.
So that's the kind of thing I'm sitting there going, you're paying thousands of dollars for a dead beetle?
Right.
But yes,
Yeah.
because those collectors are that serious. That's the only beetle they don't have. So they're going to pay for it.
Oh my gosh.
And you just sit there. And I know several years ago, there was a insect museum. I want to say it was in Philly, but don't quote me. But they had a huge burglary. Somebody goes in and steals all these insects, like an eight-eyed spider and all these different, little things that I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
But I became immediately captivated because, like, I don't know anything about it, but if there's a museum, then there's money. There's
Hmm.
money in it, which means the black market's got to be involved. So I wrote a story for Crime Online about it, but I couldn't get anybody interested. I couldn't get anybody mad. I couldn't get anybody going, wait a minute,
Mm.
this had to be an inside job. Who else would know that and know
Mm.
that it didn't matter if they lived or died? They'd still make money.
Right,
But
right.
some of those little things were so rare that that museum couldn't even replace them.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't, and from what I watched, almost it seems like even with like these like turtles and like
mhm.
these kind of special types of snakes and different things, they could, there's no way they could have lived the survived the trip, and it's like, well, they must have
Correct.
known that. So,
Yeah.
and just heartlessly letting these animals
Mhm.
just, oh, but
And they would suffer because they're suffocating.
yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly. Yeah.
terrible. It's terrible. Yep.
And who in the how can there be so many people that would want a deceased turtle, like, or whatever, like, it's
And I think
bizarre.
that's where some education's got to come in because there are people that believe the rhino horn
Mm-hmm.
has, medical purpose.
Medicine, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then there's other people that believe it has like, you know, it has the same effect as like oysters, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's asinine.
Right.
But it takes training because the lie gets out there first. And it's hard to get that back once it's out there. So there's all
Right.
these folks that are like, oh, I want a drink. And I can't remember the price, but y'all can research it. It is ridiculous that at these clubs, they take these rhino horns and grind them up and literally put them in these cocktails, and people are drinking them at these clubs just to kind of show how much money they have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
And Mel,
okay,
yeah, like shark fins,
yeah,
Melmac says.
correct.
Yeah.
The exact same. And you
Mm-hmm.
may, again, I had the impression maybe 50,000 sharks, but it's 500,000.
Crazy.
Like, that is nuts. So if
Yeah.
you look at your ecosystem, we're going to be in real trouble
Yeah.
because we're not, every little animal has some part to play. And if you bust that up, you're going to lose something, right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. And do you find that, or have you learned anything about, like, is there a part of this country in the United States where they're coming in more than
oh,
other
yeah.
parts? Or
That's why I mentioned the busiest airports. So, Chicago, Atlanta, you have to look there, just like human trafficking. They are coming through those airports. So, if you're not arresting somebody just about every other day, you're missing it because they're moving them. They're
it's
moving them.
incredible.
And there's some things that are great, y'all. Like, I had a nephew, and his wife went into labor early. So, my children at the time, they were 16 and 18. And my son, this is relevant to the story, but he had a full beard, um, even in high school, because he was like, hey, I could grow it. So, he wanted to show that off. And my daughter is little for her age. She's tiny, and she looks young. She looks younger than she is. So even though she was 16, she probably looked 13.
Okay.
He probably looked 20.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband and I could not go down to Savannah, Georgia when they could. So they went early because they wanted to see the baby. They were so excited. So my husband said, this is great. And I will get y'all a room at the Hilton. We'll be a day or so behind y'all. And the Hilton at the time had a QR code. And so my husband just sent it to my son's phone. When my son got to the room, he put it up to the door opened. They never even had to go in the lobby. They never had to go to the front desk. So nobody was, making sure, are you 25? You can't rent a hotel room, that sort of thing. They
Right.
walked right in, got in the elevator, and went up.
Mm-hmm.
But I told my husband, anybody watching that should have been like, that
Right.
doesn't look right. Like she looks
This guy
like a
was
child.
right.
But anybody that was a pimp or a human trafficker, they don't have to go to the front desk either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They would have the same QR code. So it's one of those things I was happy about for my children because they got to go on and
Right.
celebrate with the baby. But my mind was clicking the whole time going, what devil thought of this?
Right.
Like, this is, but there you go.
So it sounds like our government, hopefully our whoever it would be, whatever division of our I can't think of the word, not police, not military, but whatever, who would ever be looking for this would be, it's becoming a tie-in where they really are trying to address this problem of
Well, I
of
think
these
you're right.
animals
I think
coming
it's
in.
a lot of people. I think the
Okay.
Coast Guard is involved. I think,
We'll just say
you
I'm
know,
right because I can't think
you're
of the
right.
word.
You're 100% right. But like airlines are clearly involved. They've done a lot of great training with their flight attendants and pilots. Hotels have done a great job. Um, but we don't have a choice because it's that prevalent, you know.
Okay. And is this something at this point? This is something right now you're not working on a particular cases. This is something kind of down the line that you're.
It's down the line. I'm
Okay.
trying to get it going. I have literally in March is when I had the training. So
Oh,
what we're
okay.
doing now is we're trying to support the Wildlife Forensic Academy in any way we can, and that's with experts. That's with, trying to raise funds for them because they've got a lot of rangers out there that don't have the equipment they need. And like one thing that we did was, crime scene markers are small, right? You've all seen those
Okay.
pictures where you might have 17 things lined all up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get them in one picture, but you don't know what it is. Is it a cigarette butt or a shell
Right.
casing or a drop of blood? You just
Yeah.
see those yellow things, right?
Yeah.
So one thing as a group we all looked at, and we had tons of experts kind of do a peer review and make sure this is the right thing. But we did crime scene markers that are about the size of a for sale sign, a small for sale sign,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got an animal paw, it's got blood splatter, it's got a dart, it's got a
Ah.
gun, it's got a footprint. So
Okay.
from a distance in a wide open space like South Africa, if an animal is killed, you can see what transpired from a distance. So there's
Oh.
things like that we're trying to help them, you know,
Yeah.
get so that they can move more of these cases through the court system. Because right now, less than like 15% are even prosecuted.
Okay. And we have a question. Are dogs specialized to smell poached animal parts?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. These
Some
dogs are
breeds.
unbelievable, but they're taught to smell, tigers and elephants and turtles and shrimp and all these different things. Yeah. They're called conservation dogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
They are fabulous. I want one.
what kind of dogs are those? Are they a specific kind of breed or?
Yeah, from what I saw, there were different breeds.
Uh-huh.
So it's like any other dog. You can teach them to, connect cocaine or gunpowder. So they're
Mm-hmm.
doing the same thing. So it could be a beagle or a shepherd or a Malinois, whatever.
Have you? I don't know. Have you seen that? There's a short. It comes up on YouTube. And my husband and I. It came up again. We'd seen it like months ago, and they came up again. We were both laughing. We kept replaying it. There's a German Shepherd, and it says he's a retired police dog, and he's like looking out the window, and the guy is saying to the dog, like a grocery list, like I'm gonna go to the store, I'm gonna get milk, cheese, he just starts listing off all these things, and then the guy goes cocaine, and the dog's head whips around.
That's awesome.
It's so funny,
Yeah,
and his
that's
tongue is like
fabulous.
it's the cutest
Fabulous.
thing. Big, gorgeous German Shepherd too. um I love German Shepherds. I have a thing. But so information. Okay, so I did just a couple more questions. We're gonna let you out of here. I know we were given it an hour, but
Okay.
what can people do about this? What role can people play in the public about trying to help with these issues?
Sure. Well, again, you can contact the Wildlife Forensic Academy. You can donate. You can get trained. You can become, somebody that champions their cause to say, look, y'all, I had no idea 350 million animals a year.
It's
So,
crazy.
yeah, we're going to have some real damage pretty soon. No matter where you live in the United States, there is some animal being trafficked, whether it's a turtle or a bear or whatever. So find out from your local like DNR, your wildlife, police, find
Mm-hmm.
out.
Okay.
Are people harming fish hatcheries? Are they going after, certain deer like in Key West, those little key deer, anything that's rare, you know. So that would be one thing. I think the second thing is talk about it, post about it, because people don't know.
I can't
They just,
imagine like what's in Jersey that anybody would want like around here. I don't know. We might be
that's
the one
hilarious.
state that's
Well,
excluded. I don't know.
but you've
Makes
got
sense.
the ocean.
That's
So of
true.
course,
Right.
it's
That's
right
true.
there.
That's
And you've
true.
got people that do like the whale watching and they've got different things and that means somebody could get that same thing and harm something. So
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Absolutely.
I just saw some woman was fine. Like,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I've got something else. You said Jersey, the Garden State.
uh,
This blew my mind. I hate to keep telling your people I don't know anything, but I didn't know this. So I'm just telling y'all. I was like, what? So the other thing that people poach are plants, which also directly harm animals. So
okay.
they will go and get these cacti that are 200 years old. And there's all these plants in South Africa. Some of them have, medical purpose, but some of them are just beautiful and extremely rare. So
Mm-hmm.
they will get these plants, dig them all up, and then ship them to whoever their fence is that, you know, lets people buy them. So you're walking through somebody's yard and go, man, I've never seen a tree like that. I know, because there's only four in the whole world. And I
Mm-hmm.
own one of them. I mean, it's nuts.
Ugh.
It's nuts. But plants. So again, the Garden State, I guarantee you've got some plants that are only in New Jersey that somebody in Wisconsin's going to want. And somebody will go
Wow.
steal it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe all this is going on. It's like, how do people even have the time? Sometimes I wonder for to even like. I guess
Yeah.
when you have a ton of money, this is maybe what happens. This is the
I
downside of.
guess. But there's so many legal things I would want if I had a ton of money. I don't
Yeah,
need illegal
right.
stuff. I mean,
Exactly,
good
right.
Lord.
Right.
Whatever.
Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast, Sewing
Hmm.
with Seven.
It's Zone 7, and the reason I called it Zone 7 is Atlanta, we have 6 police zones. So back in the day, before cell phones and before pagers, if we wanted to meet up after work, we would have to go on the radio and say, everybody 5-9 at Zone 7 at the end of shift. So people listening to scanners or, our superiors, they wouldn't know what we were saying instead of saying, hey, y'all, we're all going to go to the bar after work. So Zone 7 was Manuel's Tavern to us. And so what happened was the more we would all meet, we would tell stories. We would get advice. We would hear other people tell stories and learn better ways to do things. So the Zone 7 for me at some point stopped being a bar and started being a way of life. So I started to see, wait a minute, these people have my back. They want me to be successful. They're going to tell me the truth. If I'm out of line, I'm out of line. If I'm out of bounds, I'm out of bounds. Your inner circle. And so that's why I called it Zone 7, because the people that I have on the show typically are in my Zone 7.
Okay. Got it. And
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's a great show, and there's just a lot of heart in it. She has a lot of great guests too, and
Thank you.
it's on all the channels. Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, probably a bunch of other places, so you can find it easily. Yeah.
You would know something funny? Because, your audience is, I'm probably very new to them. I don't have this opportunity to talk to animal folks very often. But Michael Vick was a football player in Atlanta and
Yes.
got in trouble for the dog fighting and all that.
Yep.
There's a jersey that a friend of mine sent me, and his last name is Vick, and they had added Con.
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, I want that jersey so bad.
That's great.
Yeah, I thought it was too.
Got to, when I was in massage school, I got to massage. They had some of those dogs, and I had a class down in DC area, and they had them at this kind of like a shelter. I guess it was a shelter. I guess they were keeping them there. I don't know why they were still there. Maybe it wasn't that. I've lost track of time, but I got to work on them, so that was a great thing to be able to.
I didn't even know that was a
massage them.
thing. So you massage dogs because they've had trauma, or I didn't know
for
that.
anything. Yeah, just anything a human would benefit from massage. From
Really?
an animal can benefit.
My dog Traveler's laying right there. I hope you ain't hearing that.
Well, you know what? I have playlists on here, so Mom, you can go on and watch the playlist after this and learn how to massage him. So.
That's why all of a sudden, like the cocaine dog, all of a sudden she was like, massage.
Right. Yep. Acupressure too. You can do both.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, I have seen the chiropractor adjusting the giraffe. Yeah. And that's the cutest thing I've ever seen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yeah, chiropractic's so good for animals. It really is. Anything we can benefit, anything seriously, any relaxation, post-surgery, pre-surgery, immune system support, just really anything animals can benefit from. So.
And I want everybody to know I'm joking. I would, of course, give her a massage.
Okay.
Sweet thing.
So, and is dogs? I have to ask this. What's your favorite animal? Is it dog?
In the whole world?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, of course, I love a dog. I've had them my whole life, so it's probably the one that I've been the most exposed to is a dog. But probably a giraffe. I mean, there's just something about them. They just don't even look real to me.
Yeah.
They're and that
really
was the
amazing.
one thing I told my children before we got to South Africa. I said, I'm just going to warn y'all. The first time we ever got to the Grand Canyon, I cried because I was just so overwhelmed by it. I mean, it was tears of just pure joy and just blown away of what I was looking at. And I said, I'm just telling y'all, if I see a giraffe in the wild, I will act a fool. So just, you got to give me a mulligan. And of course, that first morning, there's this family of like 6, and there's this little baby. And I'm standing, like literally in the bush. I'm just standing, and that little baby stopped and was just looking right at me. Oh, wow. I was so close, I could see her eyelashes.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool.
Yeah, I was overwhelmed. Just, I mean, who would hurt that animal?
Right.
I just don't understand. I don't. I don't.
My massage teacher got to massage a giraffe. It was
Mm.
part of like the coming out of surgery that she was under, and then as she was coming out, I think it was, or maybe it was as she was going under, probably both, to kind of aid on both ends. But she got to
Yeah.
do that,
And
which
just
is like
soothe her.
amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
So
amazing.
cool.
But also, just as a human being, what that would mean to you, and
Right.
you would understand what was happening. They don't understand. So, I mean, how wonderful.
Yeah,
How wonderful.
exactly. Yeah. Well,
That's
thank
awesome.
you. Yeah, thank you so much for doing
Oh,
this. I really am grateful for your
no.
time. I know you have a very busy schedule. You're all over the place. You can catch Cheryl on like a million different shows all the time. She's quite the YouTube star. So and not just YouTube either. So we
No,
are
this
very
was
grateful.
wonderful. And it was an honor to be with all of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's my honor. So thank you, everyone, and everyone have a wonderful. We have a long weekend coming up, so just be careful out there, and God bless everyone and your fur babies, fur feathered, scaled, etc. And thank you so much to our wonderful mod, Melmac. You are the best. All right, everybody, take care.
Thanks, y'all.
Have a great night.